You're listening to Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill Gaming Podcast. Here's your host, John Wall.
It's July 8th, 2026, and welcome to episode 190 of Midlife Side Quest, the Over the Hill video game podcast. I'm your host, John Wall, and every Thursday morning I bring you 15 minutes of video game impressions, industry news, and tales of a Gen X geek. Thank you for tuning in to the show today. I hope you all had a safe and happy holiday weekend. I was working over the weekend because I work in healthcare. And if you work in healthcare, especially in a hospital, you know that we never close. But I still got some fun family time in and some gaming too. And this week's show is out a day early so that I can talk about the new Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynched. As always, though, let's kick things off with a look at the news. On Monday, the other shoe dropped, and Xbox CEO Asha Sharma announced the details of their so-called Xbox reset. Today's story comes from Marcus Stewart at Game Informer. Xbox has announced it is splitting from 5 of its development studios: Compulsion Games, Double Fine Productions, Ninja Theory, Undead Labs, and Arcane Studios, while announcing plans to reduce headcount by over 3,000 employees over the next several months. CEO Asha Sharma sent a lengthy message to the entire Xbox team detailing her previously announced plans for a reset of the brand and its operations in what she calls, quote, the most significant restructure in Xbox history. Compulsion Games and Double Fine will once again become independent studios and retain their IP and game catalogs. These developers were purchased by Xbox in 2018 and 2019, respectively. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs have entered terms to join new ownership with funding to complete and grow Senua and State of Decay 3, according to Sharma. The fate of Arcane Studios is less clear. Sharma states the Lyon-based team has entered the required consultation in France with its Works Council to review potential strategic options. Layoffs will hit other studios such as Activision, Bethesda ZeniMax, Blizzard, King, Mojang, and Xbox Game Studios. Approximately 3,200 employees will be laid off throughout fiscal year 2027. 1,600 employees will be terminated as of today, the story went. So there's a lot more information about this story in the article, so go check that out now at Game Informer. But some key takeaways for myself. I think it's clear, something had to happen over at Xbox with some of these studios. Things were not going well for many of them. I don't want a single person to lose their job. But, Undead Labs hasn't released a video game since 2018. Clearly that's bad. That's not sustainable. But I also think that most, if not all of the problems connected to that are due to poor management. So for the people working in the trenches to lose their jobs because of mismanagement is pretty awful. Also, I truly hope that these studios can succeed moving forward. These were some of my favorite studios under Xbox, and I hope that they can continue to be. I think it wouldn't have been surprising if Microsoft would have just closed the studios, laid everybody off, and said, we're keeping the IP. So thankfully, since that didn't happen, hopefully they can all find a way to keep making awesome games after this. At least they'll get the opportunity to try. I don't know what the future of Xbox is. Microsoft has proven the skeptics right in that Sharma was brought in to make these devastating cuts without any sort of personal or emotional ties to these studios. She and Matt Booty say they're trying to save Xbox, but instead of using a thoughtful and carefully planned strategy, they are playing the role of battlefield medic, shooting Xbox up full of morphine, hacking off its limbs, stopping the bleeding, and crossing their fingers that it survives. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynched is a remake of 2013's Assassin's Creed 4, a game that is only 13 years old and might not seem a likely candidate for a remake, but that's kind of the world we live in now. As far as remakes go, this is something of an interesting case. Ubisoft says the game has been rebuilt using the latest version of their Anvil game engine, which is what the Assassin's Creed games have been using since Valhalla in 2020. But this isn't like the Resident Evil 2 remake or even Star Fox, which I talked about last week. You're not going to play this and say to yourself, wow, this is a completely new game. Instead, what they've done is stayed true to the original game, but updated everything to make it feel a bit more in line with what you've been playing if you've kept up with the recent entries in the series. It's more a case of trying to capture how you remember Black Flag from back in 2013. So much so that at first it felt way closer to the original than I was kind of expecting. But after, spending about 20 or so hours with this remake so far, and even going back and looking at some of the footage of the original game, it becomes pretty clear that they have done a lot of work to this thing. Visually, it looks fantastic. They have updated game models, animations, lighting, ocean physics, and a lot more. Again, this isn't a case of the game looking completely different than you remember, but it's just a really good version of that game. This game went to the mall, grabbed an Auntie M's pretzel, and hit up glamour shots. And if that last sentence made any sense to you, you're probably due for a colonoscopy. They also made a ton of changes to the gameplay, both big and small. They added things like auto navigation for your ship, the jackdaw, which has been in recent games and lets you kind of drop a pin anywhere on the map and let your crew do the sailing. All your ship's weapons now have secondary firing options, and you can build a fleet from the ships that you capture to send out on their own missions and bring back resources. That was a mode that was originally tied to a separate app. Black Flag was one of the original games that took advantage of that whole second screen period in gaming, if you remember. I know I definitely had my iPad next to me while I was playing back in 2013. They've also added about 6 hours of brand new content to the game, including new missions that allow you to recruit officers for your ship. Once they join the crew, they'll give you new perks like a more powerful ramming ability for the jackdaw and the ability to do a perfectly timed bracing move to greatly reduce damage from incoming attacks. I also think they're just cool characters, and I found their stories pretty interesting. The added content that kind of brings me to my next point, and that for all of the ways in which they have modernized Black Flag, one of the things I really like are the things they left alone, like the size of the game. Last week, I wrapped up my playthrough of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I clocked it in at just under 100 hours, and there was a lot that I didn't do in that game. The size and scope of Black Flag seems downright quaint in comparison. It's still a good sized game, but even with the additional content, you could probably knock this out in like 25 to 30 hours, probably around, 60 to 70 if you wanted to do everything. And that's fairly small by modern Assassin's Creed standards. You also won't find a skill tree in this game. You can craft objects to give you more storage and get new gear to up your stats, but you won't be dumping points into endless tiered ability trees. There also aren't hundreds of color graded gear to collect. At this point in the game, which, like I said, I'm about 25 hours in, I think I have like 3 outfits, 4 swords maybe, and some of that just came with the upgraded version of the game. It's really kind of refreshing to go back to when Assassin's Creed was more of an action adventure series before they introduced all those RPG elements and the world got so ridiculously huge. It does have a few things that I could nitpick about. There's no quest log, so instead of just going to a list of active missions and tracking what I want to do, I need to search through the map, which is fairly loaded with icons because it's Assassin's Creed, and try to find the one for the quest that I want to do next. And some of the traversal is a little clunky at times, especially when you're trying to jump around some of the more natural environments, like going from branch to branch in a tree. It's not a constant issue, but it happens enough to be mildly annoying, I'd say. Those are pretty minor issues. What I loved about this game in 2013 and what I still love about it now is that it's just a really damn good pirate simulator. There is so much to do. Sailing the seas as your crew sings a shanty is so much fun. Upgrading your ships with new weapons and sails and a little kitty cat who sits on the railing next to you. That's awesome. Diving among shipwrecks while avoiding sharks. Playing checkers with some pirate at a local pub. Finding hidden maps and hunting down buried treasure, Massive naval battles against an armada of Spanish ships while lightning strikes and giant waves crash against the hull. It's just an incredibly fun pirate world that I love being in again. And it happens to also be a great Assassin's Creed game too. The Twin Cities aren't exactly a mecca of game development, but we do have a lot of other cool things going on in the gaming world. There's the 2DCon convention that happens every year. We are the birthplace of both Game Informer and MinMax. And Minneapolis is the host for one of the coolest events in gaming, Summer Games Done Quick, which kicked off last weekend and goes through Sunday the 12th. If you are not familiar, GDX, as it is often called, is a marathon of speed running challenges that raise money for charity, with this year being for Doctors Without Borders. And when I say that they raise money, I mean capital M money. To date, they have raised over $50 million, which is insane. If you've never watched highly skilled speedrunners do their thing, it's kind of bonkers. These people do things with video games that shouldn't be humanly possible. They have a precision and an accuracy that is robotic. And it's super fun to watch because they play all sorts of different games. This year's schedule includes everything from Resident Evil Requiem to Snowboard Kids. So if you want to check it out, you can see the entire schedule on gamesdonequick.com, and you can watch the event on Twitch. It is wildly entertaining, and it's for a really good cause. Thank you for listening to Midlife Side Quest. I appreciate you making time in your day to hang out with me. You can catch a new episode every Thursday morning wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can support the show by subscribing and leaving a review. Until next time, I'm your host, John Wall. Have a great rest of your week, and don't forget to save.